Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago. This is yet another example of why you cannot trust the police service and why you cannot trust the government, either the UNC or the PNM, because they both weaponize the TTPS and both also allow the TTPS to continue to get away with malicious prosecution or neglect, incompetence, misconduct in their duties. And then the state ends up having to pay a lot of money. Getting into it, a High Court judge in Trinidad and Tobago has ordered the state to pay over $2.5 million. So just imagine. And this is not about the Hadidza. This is about a victim, and you're going to hear about it here. A victim who was murdered, and the relative, I think is the mother, ended up suing the state. Okay? So just imagine how much the Hadids will win. The High Court judge in Trinidad and Tobago has ordered the state to pay over $2.5 million to the mother of Samantha Isaacs, a domestic violence victim murdered in 2017. A beautiful young woman. Life was taken because another monster in this world believed that he owned her. I can't understand men for that. I cannot understand men for that. I'm straying from the point for a short while. Men, God bless you with a woman. She's your partner. She's not your property. And therefore, the relationship ends, or even if there's infidelity, you either forgive and you move on and you continue, or you leave. Simple as that. No one belongs to you, and therefore you cannot take their life. But again, I'm back to the report itself. The ruling follows a lawsuit alleging that local police and the court system failed to protect Isaacs despite numerous reports of abuse. Now, it can't really be about alleging anymore because she won the case. It means it's a fact. But anyhow, you know how it will be stated in news reports. The court determined that authorities did not take necessary steps to safeguard her life. And it happens all the time. You know, most of the time was the excuse. Oh, well, the women make these reports and then they go back in a relationship with the abuser, so we ain't going to waste our time over it. A lot of the times that's the reason. And then there are other cases where the man, the perpetrator, so most of the times it's men that commit these kind of offenses. The perpetrator usually has friends in the police service. So the court determined that authorities did not take necessary steps to safeguard her life. The compensation package includes damages for loss of earnings and severe emotional distress experienced by Isaacs before her death. Furthermore, the court awarded damages for the emotional harm suffered by her mother and young son, whose right to a safe family life was violated because police failed, just like they fail in most things, to serve, to protect and serve. These are Kamala's wonderful, wonderful warriors in blue, rough men. Finally, the court added extra penalties to show public disapproval regarding the inadequate handling of the case by the authorities. These penalties are designed to compel government agencies to treat domestic violence response reports with greater seriousness as reported by the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian. And the thing about it is that in spite of this, because you know why the police officers will never learn and never change their ways? You know why? Because they don't ever have to pay these compensations out of their own pockets. The state moves like a parent that spoils their child and pays it on their behalf, and they don't ever face any consequences for their actions, so they continue to do the same thing over and over again. Just what day it was, it had a report online. I can't remember if it was from on Ian Allen or what. And I believe it was a woman. So that she went to make a report by a police station, and the police officer told her, no, you cannot make the report here. We will tell you where it is you could go to make it. I think it was somebody online. I don't think it was Ian Allen. Yeah. And we've heard it over and over again in the media that you're supposed to be able to go and make a report at any branch of the police service here in Trinidad and Tobago, by any police station, no matter where, you could be able to go and make a report. The police officers don't care about that. They will tell you plainly, no, you have to go by this particular area to be able to make that report. They just don't care. And they don't care if you sue them because they know that mommy or daddy, Trinidad and Tobago government, going to pay the compensation on their behalf. It continues over and over again. The same thing with the DPP. You're going and you're agreeing to press charges against somebody. even though the evidence does not look, it looks shaky, it looks like it isn't valid. And over again, these cases are thrown out, and the DPP is never held accountable either. My response, yet again, taxpayers will have to cover the cost for tyrant Kamla's rough men. Now, these rough men's misconduct in the TTPS. Now, the thing about it is, don't get me wrong, this hasn't now started. You know. I'm just saying she considers them the rough men who go out there at night to be able to protect everyone in this world. How come they didn't protect this woman? Well, in this country, eh? Eh, Kamla? How come they didn't protect this woman? You're quiet about that, eh? You're quiet about that. Your rough men failed. Your rough men fail most of the times, Queen Cams. But so this is not just about police doing this under the, you know, the PNMites will make it sound as that, as though, well, this now started to happen. This 2017, so this didn't happen. This happened when Kamla was in opposition. My whole point is she glorifies a very corrupt and incompetent police service. I wanted to say on behalf of all the UNC police lovers in Trinidad and Tobago, we should all say good job, officers. Sarcasm, of course, because it's not a good job at all. It's a terrible job. They failed and they continue to fail on a daily basis. In a world where justice actually prevails, the officers who fail to protect this woman from a monster in society, as I said at the beginning of this video, he is a monster, evil, would be sent to prison for a very long time. Those officers would have had to pay the compensation out of their own pockets and be sent to prison. Thank God at least her mother was still able to receive this form of monetary compensation, but cannot bring back a beautiful daughter's life. And yet, she will have to live seeing those police officers that did this, enjoying their lives, partying and fetting and whatever, going to church and everything like that, while her daughter is somewhere in eternity, and of course also 6 feet under. The body is 6 feet under, but the spirit is somewhere. I shall leave it like that. We know it's heaven or hell, and that's about it. But the point remains, people, that at the end of the day, now the reason why I said that is because the Bible says the only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ. So if she was a born-again Christian, then definitely she is in heaven now. And I shall leave it like that because I don't want to go into that discussion here. But the point remains that the police service continues to prove over and over again how incompetent and corrupt they are. And we have no government up to now has ever taken the right decision to reform the police service, get rid of all the corrupt cops, change the whole type of training process in the police service, mandate that police officers wear body cams, and also that they abide by the laws which they enforce upon everybody else. And if they violate those laws, they should lose their jobs and also face time in prison if it's a serious crime. But here in Trinidad and Tobago, no, the rough men are glorified. The rough men are glorified for going out there and fighting crime and fighting people and spying on people who are having personal discussions and then using preventive detention orders to lock them up. Legal notices setting out the grounds for the preventive detention orders issued against business executives Dominic Hadid, Genevieve Hadid, and Star Sabga have now been published, alleging they were involved. I want UNC's fanatics to listen to this carefully. Alleging they were involved in an ongoing conspiracy to assassinate members of the government. But listen to the details. The extraordinary gazette signed by Minister of Homeland Security Roger Alexander, the actual leader of the UNC at this point in time, outlines the intelligence said to have informed the detention orders made under Regulation 14 of the Emergency Powers Regulation 2026. According to the notices, authorities allege the 3 detainees were linked to a conspiracy to assassinate members of the government and pose a threat to public safety during the ongoing state of emergency. The notice relating to Dominic Hadid, dated June 27th, claims, listen to the words again, claims, intelligence identified him as being involved in an ongoing conspiracy to assassinate senior members of the government of Trinidad and Tobago and or other serving members of parliament. It alleges that following statements made in Parliament during the debate on the extension of the state of emergency, Hadid expressed violent intentions by stating words to the effect that persons would be shot in their head. The notice further claims that those statements were made in furtherance of a developing plan to target members of the government, and alleges Hadid, because of his financial means and influence, had the resources and capability to facilitate serious organized criminal activity. So it's just assumption on it. They're just saying because he's wealthy, he has the resources in order to do it. Nothing there has said that he said he was going to use it, or that he was actually plotting it already, Nothing there. All this is based on just assumption by a statement that was supposedly made. And how did they hear about that statement? Well, that's what we're wondering right now. It also claims his continued liberty presented. Are you listening to that? Liberty. So they want to keep this man locked up for how long? It also claims his continued liberty presented a real and immediate risk of facilitating plans intended to destabilize the government through violence. You know what you think about it? Does that really make sense to any of you political fanatics outside there, UNC fanatics outside there? Have you ever watched crime shows, crime documentaries away? You think having somebody behind bars could really prevent anything from taking place? What are they going to do? Put him in solitary confinement? And even then, you really think that could really stop anything? I'm telling you, it is just propaganda that is being pushed for political reasons. This is just political. The political agenda, people. It's going and targeting your political opponents. Genevieve Hadid's detention order, also dated June 27th, alleges intelligence identified her as participating in the same conspiracy which is actually most likely just a conversation that people. It is just a conversation. According to the notice, intelligence indicated she made statements, you hear that? Suggesting them the death of the Prime Minister, members of government, and members of Parliament were required. Once again, it's a statement. I don't make those statements. I believe in leaving justice in the hands of God. But what I'm saying is, it's a statement commonly used by a lot of individuals here in Trinidad and Tobago, and was commonly used when the PNM was in office by UNC members, right? I'm not talking about the members of Parliament. I'm talking about UNC supporters. Even online, and even in population. And I used to warn people and all, you cannot be making those kind of statements at the end of the day. That is wrong. It is wrong. Leave judgment in the hands of God if the courts are failing. Nevertheless, but it was still just a statement, people, right? Following remarks made during the parliamentary debate on the extended state of emergency. The notice also alleges she was associated with others involved in the conspiracy, the discussion. They call it the conspiracy. That's the new term for when people having conversations amongst themselves. And that her continued liberty created a substantial risk that plans to carry out violence against government members could proceed. Once again, that is total propaganda, people. Because at the end of the day, holding somebody behind bars will not prevent, if a plan was already put in place, it's not going to prevent it from happening. But as I'm telling you, it's just lies and more lies coming out from the UNC. And if you don't want to believe me, go and search online for yourself. Look at all those cases in America in the past when there were plots being carried out. Detaining someone did not prevent anything. What they had to do was use the FBI and so forth to try to find the individuals who were already paid or whatever to be able to carry out these crimes and be able to capture them. Detaining someone, holding them inside a jail cell is not going to prevent anything from taking place. But I'm telling you, wow, but these educated people don't sound like that at all, you know. They don't. Star Sabga's detention order, dated June 26th, alleges intelligence identified her as playing a significant role in an ongoing conspiracy. There was a conversation, and we don't even know if that conversation actually took place, or if this was all fabricated. That's the thing about it. But if it did take place, how did the police find out about it? So, as identified her as playing a significant role in an ongoing conspiracy to assassinate members of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. According to the notice, Sabga allegedly made repeated statements, not actions, She didn't go and try to do anything, Made repeated statements advocating, we hear the word, advocating violence against government members during discussions concerning the present government and encourage collective violent action. It is talk. It is conversation. It is something that a lot of UNC people are guilty of. And I find if the police really want to be fair, which they are not, they will go back and search on people's conversations even online years ago. And they will see a lot of people that most likely would have been charged with sedition back then, free as a bird in the sky right now. Why? Because with all what the PNM were autocrats, they understood that talk is cheap. You have to look at if somebody's actually taking that talk and putting it into action. You're now not just talking about something and wishing these things. You're now going now and plotting, actually meeting with people, calling people, making plans to carry out those actions. That's when it becomes a crime. The notice also alleges she had access to people capable of facilitating violent criminal activity, and that her conduct formed part of a wider plan to destabilize the government. Here, everything just copy and pasted, copy and pasted, copy and pasted. Typical police type of report. It further claims she and others possessed the considerable means, meaning that they're rich, to carry out such an attack. So they're basically in prison right now because they are rich enough. They had a conversation that was controversial, and they're rich enough to be able to hire people to get the job done. Not that they actually did it to the people. Not that they actually did it. You understand where we reach in this country? People can't talk anymore. Cannot have personal conversations anymore. They didn't make those statements online, They didn't say, and they didn't call on anybody. Because if you do it online, it'll be like you're actually calling on members of the criminal society to get something done. This sounds like if it did happen and it wasn't fabricated by the police, this sounds like though this was happening probably over dinner. They were having dinner, they were liming, they probably were in a restaurant or something, and they were having a discussion amongst themselves. And that is what they're being held for. Not that they actually plotted anything, not that they actually conspired anything, just expressing their feelings, something that the UNC supporters did for 9.5 years. Things that I didn't agree with. I didn't like a lot of what was said. As I always said, as much as I despise Rowley as an evil leader, I prefer to leave things in the hands of God. But these hypocrites outside in the UNC, they never used to be talking like that. The publication of the legal notices comes days after the detentions attracted national attention and prompted legal challenges from the detainees' attorneys. My response: if there's evidence of an actual plot to murder members of the government, why haven't these suspects been charged with any crime more than a week later, people? More than a week later. So it shows clearly it was just conversation. Will they have to remain behind bars for the next 4 years while the incompetent and corrupt TTPS completes their investigation? You have these people devices. You talk about computers or laptops or whatever. But phones and so forth, right? You have all these devices, and yet you cannot obtain any type of evidence up to now showing that they contacted members of the criminal society to carry out any sort of attack against the government. You can't find that up to now. You're playing games, and that's why, because you know why it does not exist. These people were just having a conversation during a dinner, during a party, during something. Because yes, the upper class are parties, and just that like the common man with no fat and them kind of thing like that. Some gathering, some social gathering, or maybe it was just at home. Maybe around the dinner table they had this conversation, and most likely they were spied on. But anyhow, I went on to say, when will the laws be changed to hold politicians and public servants like the police service, police officers, personally accountable for their malicious and criminal actions, which cost taxpayers millions of dollars in compensation for victims, like I highlighted in the first story. And this is why I didn't bother with regional news today. I highlighted this next story to put the two of them together and show what is going to happen. $2 point something million for that normal citizen. So you can imagine the amount of millions of dollars the Hadids will be compensated with in the future. I went on to say, just as suspected, the Hadids probably, listen to the word I am using because I don't know, I am not God. I can't see and know all things. But I am saying, this is what it looks like. So, the Hadids probably held personal discussions about their frustration with this administration, just like many other citizens do. But they were either being spied on or someone they know decided to accuse them of sedition. That's what took place, most likely. I highly doubt it was anybody that sold them out. I believe somehow or the other, these people were being targeted by the UNC for quite a while now. And most likely, the UNC got the police to be able to spy on these people. Once again, that's just assumption. I have no evidence to prove that. I'm just saying how it is the police ended up hearing these so-called alleged discussions. Had to be either that you tap these people's phones or whatever, put devices in the place to be able to listen to them, right? Or somebody sell them out. That is the only two things I can see being possible. I went on to say, is there any evidence proving that those alleged statements resulted in an actual plot to murder any government official? That's the thing about it. Did they actually call anyone? Did they actually call anybody and say, listen, X, Y, and Z, I want all you to do this? Did they do that? It doesn't appear to be so, people. Otherwise, they would have been charged already. All of a sudden, listen to this, all of a sudden, statements which have been made by thousands of citizens about politicians in the past are being deemed an act of sedition and a conspiracy to murder. Again, I will say it again. This is not like when the other woman sometime last year called on Venezuela to attack Trinidad. That was a crime because why? You've made it a public call and therefore it was like you were actually asking these people to attack your government. These individuals never called on any criminal gang publicly to do that. And it doesn't seem as though privately they called anyone either. They were having a discussion in private, probably in some party, as I tell you, or some all around the dinner table. And that is what they are being charged for. Conversation, not for anything that they plotted. So I said, all of a sudden, statements which have been made by thousands of citizens about politicians in the past are being deemed an act of sedition and conspiracy to murder. Did they hire any gunman to do the job? At TTPS? At UNC? When UNC wins, everybody wins. No, everybody didn't win anything. The TTPS won. Roger Alexander won. The rest of us are only getting boots from Babylon. Getting Babylon boots. If they did do it, right? Then I'm quite sure that charges would have been already laid, and rightfully so. I will never try to justify that by anyone. And I'm saying that clearly that even if PNM was in office, I would have been saying that it was wrong as well. I'm not like the UNC hypocrites outside there. I do not believe in taking these type of actions because your government is doing something wrong. Understand? I believe in legal protests, peaceful protests to speak out against an autocratic government. I want to say if rum shop talk can result in imprisonment, then thousands of UNC supporters should face prison time for making similar hypothetical statements when PNM was in office. It's just like Christopher Samru's statement. He never called on anybody to do this. He said if. It's the same thing. These people it was a hypothetical statement made by the Hadids if they did it. And that's if they actually did it and not something being fabricated completely by the government and the TTPS people. That's the whole thing about it. That's the next thing, possibility. That the Hadids never had this discussion in the first place and that all this has been fabricated. But it's quite possible that they did, but they were being spied on or somebody bust the mark. Bear in mind that I don't support PNM people and everybody knows that. And have voted UNC my entire adult life, but I hate hypocrisy and weaponization of the TTPS by any government. That's the thing about it. I don't care whether it's UNC, whether it's PNM in office. I will never vote for PNM, but what I'm saying is I don't care which government is in office. I will never support, I will never agree with the weaponization of the police service to go after your political opponents. Go after anyone that opposes you. It's not just your political opponents, it is any member of society that is even protesting right now and speaking out against this government. They are being targeted. As long as your tongue slipped, as long as you make a mistake, you slide, and you're sliding straight into a jail cell.
Trinidad and Tobago weather report for Friday, July 3, 2026. On Friday, July 3, 2026, Trinidad and Tobago will experience cloudy to occasionally overcast conditions with scattered showers and a medium 40% to 60% chance of early morning thunderstorms due to an approaching tropical wave. The temperature will peak at a high of 28 degrees Celsius to 29 degrees Celsius and drop to a low of 24 degrees Celsius. The heat index will feel like 32 degrees Celsius due to high humidity. Humidity levels will be very high, ranging between 80% to 95%. East to southeast winds will blow at 5 to 35 km per hour with much stronger gusts expected near heavy downpours. Seas will remain moderate with open water waves reaching 1.5 meters to 2.0 meters, while sheltered areas will sit near 1.0 meters and become occasionally choppy during showers. Sunrise is at 5:44 a.m. and sunset is at 6:30 p.m. Because heavy downpours are likely to persist into Saturday, the Met Office warns that street or flash flooding and landslips are highly possible in flood-prone or hilly areas.
International news now. The U.S. economy added jobs at a steady pace in June despite headwinds caused by the elevated inflation and uncertainty over the Iran war's economic impact. A war that Trump is just playing games with the Iranian people because he wants to be considered the messiah of the whole world and the peacemaker of the whole world. Just finish the job and everything can just move a little smoothly for a short space of time before the end times fully kicks in and the Ezekiel well comes, because no one can bring peace on earth except Jesus Christ. Not even when the Antichrist comes that he will be able to do that. It will be a false impression of peace for 3.5 years, and then he's going to reveal his true nature, and it's chaos after that. Peace treaty will be signed, but he will break the peace treaty. The Labor Department reported Thursday that employers added 57,000 jobs in June, well below economists' expectations of 110,000 new jobs. Wow. The unemployment rate, however, edged down to 4.2%, slightly better, than the 4.3% economists had forecasted. The report also included revisions to previous month's data. April's job gains were lowered from 179,000 to 148,000, and May's were revised down from 172,000 to 129,000. Altogether, those revisions mean the economy added 74,000 fewer jobs in April and May than originally reported. Ooh, MAGA. And bear in mind, people, I do not support the radical jihadists and left's agenda at all, the Democrats at all. But it's just that Trump are telling you, boy, the man doing all kind of things to even destroy his own Republican Party. And I don't know, but I'm hoping and praying though. That people within the next few months, I think it's it is in November, the midterms coming up. People will ignore all this nonsense and still vote for the Republicans to retain their position in both the House and the Senate. Because as much as evil things taking place right now, to put back Democrats in power is going to be a whole lot worse. You think Israel being abandoned right now and betrayed right now? It's going to be a much worse if it is Democrats get back in power and end up impeaching Trump, impeach everybody else, and somehow or the other end up getting to appoint a Democrat as president. I don't know if it's possible, but all I'm saying, if it reaches that stage, Israel will be totally abandoned. At least now it's still a little game Trump playing with them, using them. A Democrat gets up in office, that's it there for Israel. That's it there for Israel. But we know it has to come to that at some point in time, though. Because at the end of the day, during the Ezekiel war, no one will come to Israel's aid. Israel will be all on their own. And God wants it that way. Because why? He will be glorified. Because he himself will be the one to defeat Israel's enemies when that time comes. Not even Israel will be able to defeat the kings of the north Turkey and Russia and Iran. Not even Israel will be able to do it on their own. Syria, multiple dead and injured after bombing attack near the Palace of Justice. Initial reports indicate that an explosion targeted a cafe in the immediate vicinity of the Palace of Justice in central Damascus. Damascus that will be totally destroyed in the future. Read the Bible. Resulting at least 7 dead and 22 injured. Sad though. The bombing occurred at a cafe situated near the primary judicial building in the capital, catching bystanders and visitors in the area. Sounds like a terrorist attack. So, most likely it's jihadists behind that. Early details from the scene confirm multiple individuals have been killed and numerous others injured, prompting emergency responders and security forces to cordon off the area to evacuate the wounded to nearby hospitals. As I said before, when there's loss of life, innocent people, not terrorists, innocent people, that is sad. Local authorities are currently investigating the nature of the explosive device and working to secure the perimeter, with further updates expected as official casualty counts are confirmed.
Bible quote of the day. Matthew 23:23-30. Jesus rebukes religious hypocrisy. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. These you ought to have done, without neglecting the others. You blind guides, straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee! First clean the inside of the cup and the plate, that the outside also may be clean. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So you also outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's news report. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.